Hello, everybody. I'm here to tell you a little bit about Siraj al-Sakkaki's Dangerous Books. Sakkaki was an important rhetorician born in Khwarezm in 1160 of the Common Era. His Miftah al-Ulum, or The Key to the Sciences, is an influential book on language, grammar, and rhetoric. Besides being an expert of the Arabic language, Sakkaki was also known as a competent magician. Some biographies tell us that his powers gained him a position in the court of the Mongol emperor. One biography describes a work of Sakkaki on the subject of magic and talismans as being of significant power and enormous gravity, but this book has never been edited, translated, or studied by modern scholars, and that's the subject of my current Leverhulme-funded research project, Sorcerer's Handbook. My translation of the title of the book, Kitab al-Shamr wa Bahr Kamil, as the Book of the Complete and the Sea of the Perfect, is informed by a reading of its introduction, which refers to the perfect scholars of the ancient world, on which it purports to base its information, hence the Book of the Perfect or Complete Person. Sakkaki's grimoire includes a varied collection of texts dealing with occult matters, including instructions for creating talismans in tune with their various astrological sympathies, for controlling jinn and devils, for causing sickness, for curing such magically caused afflictions, and for calling upon the power of each of the planets, among other topics. But few modern scholars have mentioned Sakkaki's Book of Magic, focusing instead on his work on grammar and language, the Miftah. This famous book is still used in the study of the Arabic language today, and the students who learn from it are often shocked and even appalled to learn that its author was also a sorcerer. The erasure of Sakkaki's reputation as a magician in the modern day speaks of the embarrassment surrounding the subject of magic, as scholars construct themselves as rational and modern thinkers by excluding modes of thinking labeled superstitious. On the other hand, some of the pious may consider his work on magic not only scandalous but dangerous. For example, several of the spells included in his collection also appeared in a censored and abridged form in works like these. For Sakkaki and his contemporaries, however, developing a reputation for having esoteric knowledge both of the language of the Quran and the wisdom of the ancients, for example the Greeks, could win an intellectual a powerful place in a royal court. In contrast to modern biographies written before 1900 often focus on Sakkaki's reputation as a magician to the exclusion of his reputation as a scholar of language. The earliest account tells how he influenced the battle between the Khwarezmian Shah and the Baghdadi Caliph by causing a magical statue to be buried in the city of Baghdad. He promised the statue would help the Khwarezmian Shah, but instead it ended up helping the Baghdadi Caliph. This story is told by his biographer as an example of the treacherous nature of Sakkaki's art. Some later biographies also tell about a magical battle that happened between him and a rival at court. Sakkaki convinced the Mongol ruler that this rival's astrological chart showed that he was about to have a period of bad luck, so the Mongol emperor banished him so that the bad luck wouldn't rub off on him as well. Later, Sakkaki attacked this rival with a fiery apparition. His nemesis ultimately won the battle, however, when he convinced the Mongol ruler that Sakkaki's magical powers made him too dangerous, so Sakkaki was put in jail where he ultimately died. It is clear that illusion, performance, and manipulation of the truth formed a large part of Sakkaki's role as a court magician. The dangers were nevertheless very real. Even his seemingly dry and upstanding work on language, the Miftah, takes on an occult appearance in light of these biographical details. His reference to the sihr, or sorcery, of rhetoric no longer sounds like a metaphor. He refers to his masters in the art of grammatical morphology as a sahir, wizard, of language. He also states that an understanding of metaphor and simile is the key to mastering this form of sorcery, precisely because it pertains to the connections between things. Both sorcery and metaphor involved transferring a thing from its dictionary definition into something else. Now, let's move inside so I can show you what I mean. So say, for example, you wanted to make a comparison between a bull and a strong man. It's as if a hidden connection already exists between these two things, say because of their shared strength and vitality. So the comparison holds. But if you wanted to compare a strong man to a rabbit, that hidden connection isn't as apparent. The comparison falls down. The link between man and rabbit is weak. A comparison between the two may only be a manneristic poetic conceit. But like the symbols on Philip Pullman's golden compass, each image has deeper and deeper layers of association. According to al-Sakkaki, you must consider your reader's level of knowledge when choosing which association to choose from, for example, when writing a poem. It is striking that metaphors used in poetry, for example, the association of gazelles with love and beauty, reappear in books of magic, where gazelle skins are used as the material support for love spells. This suggests that the connection between gazelles and love isn't a mere metaphor, but a hidden current of power. As al-Sakkaki explains in his Book of Language, letters themselves have khawas, or special properties, the same word that he used to refer to the hidden properties of gemstones and plants in his Book of Magic. Furthermore, he claims that his Book of Language is meant to provide the kamil, or perfect person, with the key to the sciences, the miftah al-ulum, or to all scientific needs, as he puts it, which, given his reputation, certainly included the occult sciences. Language was the key. The introduction to the miftah refers to the power of language to influence the listener that names the Quran as containing the most powerful kind of language of all. It then categorizes people into two sorts, those with the capacity to follow the often obscure and difficult text to follow, and those without, for whom it would be dangerous to even try. He goes on to caution against the dangers of a little bit of knowledge, perhaps especially when studying the Quran, but I am reminded of an anecdote in his Book of Magic about a man who tried to contact spirits without a teacher at the age of 25. He gave up when his efforts met with little success. Later, when in his 50s, he met a sheikh who could show him the right way. This sheikh threw his students old books into the sea and made him promise never again to meddle ignorantly with these practices, for by doing so, he was merely serving Satan and his demonic forces. Sakkaki's tendency to categorize people into the knows and the know-nots, his aggressively obscure language, and his frequent addresses to the reader have left me feeling self-conscious. I wonder how he would have felt if he knew that a person like me had become the reader that he was addressing. I am definitely one of the know-nots. I can only understand parts of his miftah, heavily aided by my PhD student, Muhammad Sanad, who has extensive training in this particular genre of writing. Note that I have not been describing the popular talhis, or abridgment, of the miftah, but the altogether less friendly and less popular miftah al-ulum itself. As for Sakkaki's Handbook of Magic, it warns that it is only for the pure, a category to which I feel sure I do not belong. It is true that this motley handbook quotes happily from virtually anybody, ancient or modern, pagan, or Sufi, or prophet, so long as he is a man, which I also am not. There is one exception to this rule, an instance in which a woman is cited as an authority, which I will translate for you now. Saduna the Indian, who was a woman skilled in the knowledge of excitation and inflaming, said, "It is achieved only by three things: snapping the middle fingers and the thumb, placing the love locks on the ears, and applying coal infused with the gall of a black cat and a black crow and vermin and a burial which may be from a grave or from beneath a hearth or from a crossroad or a passageway, and if it is from a grave, then it may be of a Christian or similar." She goes on to refer to the talismanic usage of certain passages of the Quran. It is significant that the only female authority in the entire shamel is cited in a spell to inflame sexual desire, and in addition to her occult ingredients and rituals, as well as her esoteric use of verses of the Quran, she advises on the standard arts of seduction, hairstyling, makeup, and provocative gestures. More interesting still is the struggle of the scribes who encountered this antidote when copying the shamel. So only the oldest and probably most reliable manuscript, here labeled C, I think correctly calls her a woman skilled in this science, Hadika. You can see it underlined there at the end of the first line. J copies this as possibly jariba, from a root often associated with experimentation in both scientific and magical texts, though this particular active participle form is not familiar to me. And in general, the dots in this manuscript are so unreliable that you must often disregard them, which is why Jaria is a reasonable reading, or slave girl. D appears to have hamila, meaning something like bearing or pregnant with. Pregnancy perhaps being a concept the scribe expected to find in association with a woman, unlike skillful, which apparently he could not fathom in this context. The word is simply effaced in S. J's mistake is particularly telling, since indeed slave girls are the most prominently knowledgeable women of medieval Arabic literature, where their wit and learning were considered an alluring spice to their sexuality, and their presence in the public eye a function of their status as entertainers and drinking companions. I would like to conclude by exploring an anecdote that brings several of these themes together. The need-to-know basis on which women in particular were admitted to this art, this dangerous esoteric knowledge gained only from a skilled master, and the ever-present atmosphere of political turmoil that explains why the stakes were so high for Sakkaki when it came to painting himself as just such a master of dangerous knowledge. I should warn you that the following quotation does contain sexual references, so if you are home with small children, you may wish to pause this video and have that talk about the birds and the bees before proceeding. This is my abridged translation. The poison that a slave girl carries, which is one of the secrets that must be hidden, and which is the desire of kings. Understand it and keep it secret. This is the poison used by a king after it was said to him that a rival had defeated his kingdom and was taking control of his country, and that there was nothing left for him except the land that he was in. A group of wise men came to him, and all of them planned a trick to get rid of his rival, but it didn't do him any good, and the trouble persisted, until one day he went to a mountain and happened across a man who had a woolen robe on and looked like a sage. "Who are you?" he asked. "I'm from the circle, hidden from the eyes of man." "And who are they?" he asked. "The jinn, and I am their sage and their leader. Are there any among you, O company of men, who can compete with me or boast against me when I have trained 1,670 students, each of whom has 1,670 students, none of whom can teach humans to understand the smallest portion of his knowledge?" And he began opening up and talking of wisdom. He said, "If you want to kill this neighbor, then take your most beautiful slave girl and feed her with quail hens and put her in the bath 7 times, 1 time every 2 days. Then take some ingredients and mix them with some other ingredients. And the slave girl should carry this during the time of her period once a day. And when her period has ended, wash with hot water, then suffumigate her vagina with yet further ingredients. Then carry it in a rag with oil with added rat fat. Then present her to your rival and give the woman as a present, for when he has sex with her and leaves her bed, he will die. This is one of the best secrets, so the wise men guarded it and treated it with caution and hid it." So again, we see the atmosphere of political and social turmoil that makes the attraction of occult power even stronger, which I think is something that we're seeing still today. And we wonder what explanation was meant to be offered to this secret agent slave girl when using her as an instrument in this jealously guarded art. I now have a full transcription and partial translation of Sakkaki's Book of the Complete, which is more than 80,000 words long, so there is obviously much more to say. But I will leave it here for now and look forward to any comments or questions you might have. Thank you very much.